If we point our camera towards the sun, it can often help us capture a great image. But at the same time, it can often introduce a contrast range that's outside of what our camera can capture. If we expose for the highlights, the shadows generally will be very heavy, and they may cause problems in editing those shadows. If we expose for the shadows, the highlights in certain places will lack any detail at all, and we'll have even more problems with those. And if we capture an exposure right in the middle, we can end up with editing problems with both highlights and shadows. Bit of a trade-off. Now, one solution can be a high dynamic range image. 3 shots with different exposures that when blended together gives us the dynamic range of all 3. If we set up 3 bracketed shots on our camera, and we also set the fast drive mode, we can take all 3 shots with one button press, handheld, as I did with these 3. You can see that this image on the left is the exposure that left alone the camera would have given. The one in the middle is 1 stop less exposure, so we've got much better exposure on the sky here. The one on the right is exposed for the shadows, so we've got much better exposure on the foreground, but of course we've lost a lot of the sky. So what we need to do here is to select all 3 of these. If we hold the Shift key or the Control key, we can select them all, hit the Enter key to open them all up into Adobe Camera Raw. As part of the HDR process, Camera Raw is going to amalgamate all 3 of these thumbnails into a 4th. When it does that, it converts them into a DNG file. Now that DNG file remains raw and allows us to do some great work with the controls on the right hand side. But what it will not allow us to do once we've amalgamated all 3 is to apply any noise reduction. Now here I shot this at 100 ISO, so I don't think it needs any. But if you did need to apply any noise reduction, you'll need to select all of these thumbnails and apply any noise reduction before you start. Holding the Control key, I'm going to select all 3 thumbnails at the top left of the screen, right click over any of them, and I'm going to merge to HDR. Now I'm going to let this process run in real time so you get a feel for how long it's going to take. Sometimes it's relatively quick, sometimes it takes a bit of time, but when you think about it, we're working with 45 megapixel images here, and Adobe Camera Raw has got to put all 3 of them together. Now once it does, it gives us this panel. Let's have a look at the options here. It's asking if I want to align the images. Well, I certainly do, because these were all shot handheld. Do I want to apply automatic settings? Well, if I untick that, you can see the difference. It doesn't really matter. We're working on a raw file, so even if we didn't like the auto settings, we can change them in a little while. Deghost, if I'm hand holding and there is a bit of ghosting where all 3 images are put together, yes, I want it set to high so it's all removed. But once we get to that point, we can click merge. Now we're offered to give this a name, although the software does put -HDR on the end. That's usually good enough for me. I'll hit save and allow it to do its work. If you look over on the left hand side, you'll see the 4th thumbnail will appear. So now we do have the opportunity to just continue with the manipulation as we would with a normal image, but of course we've got a much greater latitude here than we would normally have. But if we're not ready to do that work yet, all we need to do is to go down to the bottom right, click done, and then we'll take a look into Bridge and see what we have. So in Bridge here we can now see the 4th thumbnail. We can also see that it's been changed to a DNG rather than a .cr3, and that's why we would need to put any noise suppression before we go through the process. But here now I could just open this up as a normal thumbnail to manipulate the image. Now the creation of this HDR image along with the automatic settings has already made a significant difference to what we are seeing from what the camera would have captured. Now I'd rather not carry on and do the final editing of this image in this video. We'll take a look at the final manipulation in another one. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and please like the video, give it the thumbs up, assuming of course that you do like it. Help me get some more views. I could do with them. Until then, I'll see you later.